Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to We've Got Pep Guardiola for 2 more years. Stick it in your tin and like it. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we?
Evening.
Not bad. Evening.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but who are you down on the bottom there? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? Evening, Rich. Welcome
Evening.
back, mate.
Welcome.
I can imagine everyone's so happy to have you back, buddy boy. I know we are. We are lovely to have you back.
Good to be back, as someone famously once said in a Manchester boy band.
The land down under almost got a result tonight, Rich.
Not really.
I love the way that Xander's got pushed. Nearly, mate. Nearly. And they were nowhere near.
Bunch of amateur footballers. They're doing well to be at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Who do you mean by amateur footballers? Argentina or France or Australia?
I meant the Socceroos.
Mate, the finish though was impeccable for their goal. It was a great little finish.
Yeah, no,
little wins, Xander. Little wins, mate. Little wins, and all that.
That was good to see the.
I mean, it was the other forward at the other end that was the bloody problem, mate.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I'll tell you what, who did look good. Little talent to keep your eye on. Mbappe, keep your eye on him. He looks good.
Sounds like these other fans. Who did England play the other day? Iran.
Iran.
Also,
Iran.
we scored 2 goals. Get in, yeah, but you conceded 6. You know what I mean? Calm down. Calm down.
The worst thing. Did you see that footage of the England fans at like Box Park in Wembley, and they were all going like mental throwing the beard room and went 3-0 up? I was like, lads, it's 3-0 against Iran, right? In the first group stage game, like. It was like we just won the whole thing then. I was like, we all need to just relax a little bit.
By the way, we are here to talk about Pep Guardiola's contract extension. But I have got to say big congratulations to Rich on Gareth Bale taking 87 minutes to turn up to a World Cup for the first time. 87 minutes. He decided to come to the party and he got you a lucky point. So well done.
Do you know, Martin, you're becoming like a United fan. An early win and you're getting all cocky. Wales, meanwhile, remain unbeaten in the group stage. Only thing to ever have beaten Wales in a World Cup, Pele. Just remember that. None of these embarrassing, going out in the last 16 or last 8 is inevitable. So I wouldn't start,
Are you going to say that? Are you going to say that next Friday, Rich?
Next Friday.
Is it Friday?
Yeah, Friday, yeah.
Friday,
I'll be on
Friday for you.
Yeah, I'll be on holiday, so I'll be.
Look at him getting out the post match quick. I'm out the post match.
Yeah,
I don't want to come on and embarrass myself.
I'll just send a little video of Michael Sheen doing a rousing speech, and you can put that on in my place.
I just want to congratulate Gareth Southgate and the boys for bringing out the golden trophy. It will be lovely to see in 4 weeks parading around England. It is amazing what one win and Jack Grealish scoring a goal can do for you.
And how good was his little Finley celebration that he did as well? How good was that?
Anyway, good evening to everyone who has joined us tonight. We are here. We were going to do a World Cup stream, but then at lunchtime today, there was a little bit of news that came out from very reliable sources. Jack Gorn, David Ornstein, and the Athletic Sam Lee and Paul Bollis came out with the news that Pep Guardiola has agreed a new contract to remain as Manchester City manager up until 2025. Now, depending on who you want to believe, you could view it as a 1-year rolling contract, you can view it as a 2-year contract with a break clause in the middle, but there is a clause where both can leave if one side can get out if they want to do. But that's not why we're here. Pep Guardiola has decided his new home, the place that he's always loved for a very long time, is Manchester. And I'm just over the moon. I am over the moon. You've got Klopp Jr. down there at the bottom signing his contract last year. getting all giddy and thought Pep was going to walk out, and Pep decides he's signing his contract. I'm just over the moon that 2 reasons. We've still got the best manager in the world. And number 2, we ain't going to win the Champions League for another 2 years at least. So it is great news for me. I'm an happy bunny. What do you two think?
I think the length of the contract's interesting. I think the break clause is interesting too. Whenever I see something like that, my brain always goes to, what's that break clause there for? What kind of situation could occur for that potentially to be triggered from both the club side and Pep's side. I think his long-term plan is to manage Spain. And I think the 2-year with a break clause in the middle sets him up quite nicely to manage them for the Euros that's going to be in 2 years' time. They're my kind of thoughts. I don't know about yours, Rich.
I think there's more chance of me managing Spain than Pep.
Really?
Much more. Yeah, there's no way a Catalan nationalist
Dogs agree, Rich.
Who's spoken out. Well, they're Catalan nationalists, my dogs being Celts. There's no way. I don't think Madrid and Tebas and all those people who absolutely hate Pep because of his Catalan nationalism and sticking up for the Catalan, politicians, a couple of whom are still in exile overseas. So I just don't see how someone who is a lifelong hater of Madrid, who the Madrid fans detest, and who has spoken out so much against Spanish government and against Tebas, I don't think he's got a chance. I think he does want international football. I think you bang on about that. But I think it'll be England, possibly Holland or Brazil. I think.
Really? You think he'd do the England job?
I think he's holding, I think he'd do the England job. I think if he's going to do international football, he's going to want to do something truly amazing. And the biggest things you could do in football, the biggest job in some ways, you could say historically is Brazil. But maybe he wouldn't want to live there. It's a bit mad. He could go to Holland and try and win Holland a World Cup, following Cruyff's footsteps, or make football finally come home. That would be, and he'd be best placed for the England job because he'd have spent so much time watching and working with a large chunk of the players. So,
and he's always very complimentary of the England setup and the England team. Whenever he speaks about England as a team, he's always, very complimentary of us. And
he's always, the reason it's 2 years, Pep has always said he likes to renew a year at a time.
Yeah.
And the reason it's 2 years is because City want to try and pretend there's 2 years of certainty and make it look like it's 2025. So I'm sure that's just a political thing to try and make it look for signing players, for everything else that he's 25. Whereas Pep just wants to go a year at a time. So for him, this is the year at a time he wants, and for City, it's pretending it's 3 years, and so both sides are happy.
It's funny you mention that, Rich, because transfers are part of the reason. One, why he signed. 2, why they've announced it as 2 years.
Yeah, of course.
Because obviously, if you announce it as 1 year with a break or 1 year was a rolling, whichever, listen, it's one of them.
Yeah. It's 6 to 1, half done to the other.
Yeah,
really,
this sort of broke from the Athletic earlier on. And I know not everyone has managed to get the Athletic. So what I've done is, because it is a paid subscription, I have paid for it out of the goodness of my own heart so I can bring you more in-depth details about this. This has obviously come from Paul Ballas and Sam Lee. Said, this all began on October 16th when we got beat at Liverpool. And this is where people were sort of, you could see Pep was a lot more animated in that game, probably than ever before. Now, it goes on to talk about in this thing that the club were aware that for the 51-year-old, it was important to make sure alongside his family, this was the right step to take. Everyone in his inner circle had to be on board with any step going forward. Yeah. So this wasn't just Pep. Pep had to make sure his whole family and everyone that's important to him was going to be okay with him sticking around. So he's going to be in charge. If he does make this 2 years, he'll be in charge at the Etihad for 9 years, which is quite unprecedented in these times. I remember, me and Rich come from an age where we used to get a manager every 33 days. Never mind 9 years. You know what I mean? So it was quite, this is something that is quite unprecedented when it comes to Manchester City managers.
And it's a dynasty at that point, isn't it, as well?
I think it already is. Is. The big
it's
thing
funny
is,
as well. I heard not just on transfers, but also on contract renewals. Gundogan came out, I think, last week, basically saying when he was asked about his contract, he said in his interview, I don't even know what Pep's doing yet, which is quite interesting because he was obviously thinking, well, if he's leaving, I'll probably go as well. But I think it makes him more likely to sign an extension now, as well as being a more attractive proposition to incoming players. I think it keeps the squad. They'll want to stand him. They know how good he is. They won't want to be going anywhere else anytime soon whilst he's still here, I don't think.
You say there's a big key thing to this. If you go back, Manchester City have done everything for the last 12 to 18 months to make this guy very happy.
Even to the point of not signing Ronaldo, that's come out this evening as well.
Yes, there was not signing Ronaldo. Apparently, he's come out. Pep was the one who put the blocks on that.
And said if he did sign him, he wouldn't have signed an extension.
Yeah, but apparently this feeling was if he signed Ronaldo, Pep would have not signed his extension.
Yeah.
The other thing was they listen closely to certain things. When we've always joked about when Pep says things in the press or the media, and we've always joked that he says things to sort of give a message to his board. Well, it's come out in this article. Apparently, that's what the board do. And they were listening very closely. Do you remember how Pep used to wax lyrical over Jack Grealish for about 2 years?
Yeah.
The Jack Grealish deal was in place for nearly a year.
And now it's old Judy boy.
Yeah. This is what they do. They literally listen. So this is why I always say when Pep speaks in presses, he's sending messages out to people.
I think it's not just that, Martin. I think they'll be fully aware he wants them. I think it's him putting pressure on them in a way for them to then go, when he goes, well, we didn't sign them, and they'll go, did you want anyone? He can go, well, I always wanted Jack Grealish because I've always said about him for years. I think it gives him that angle of self-preservation as well, so that if they don't then signing the player that he's recommended, and if they go, well, you were short a midfielder, why didn't you go for a midfielder? Somebody go, well, I wanted Bellingham, but they didn't want to buy Bellingham. There's all that kind of mind games as well that he's got, I think, in that regard too.
Yeah, I just simply think that everything that he's done, this whole club is set up for Pep Guardiola. Everything. Do you remember how? And Rich, I'm going to show my age here. Sorry, Xander, but you might not be old enough. Do you remember Ferguson, Rich? How he had charge of United from top to bottom, didn't he?
He did.
Do you think Pep's there now? Do you think we're at that stage with Pep?
No, I think
he's got more of an infrastructure on it. Pep.
I think there's a lot stronger figures at City other than just Pep. I think rather than Pep, it's Team Pep. I think Cheeky and Ferran and Pep and some of the trainers that he has. I think there's probably 6 or 7 different people who are kind of holding a lot of influence. Clearly, Pep's at the centre of it, but I do think there's a lot more than there was at United, where it really wasn't so much a team. And look at the way Ferguson treated some of his assistants and everything else. It was quite different to how Pep does. And, so I don't think we're going to collapse for 10, 20 years like United did when Ferguson left.
Well, Man U was literally just Ferguson and David Gill, wasn't it? I mean, when you look at them as an infrastructure, when you look like you just said, Rich, it's like it feels much more like a pyramid at City at the moment.
I've long thought that people compare Pep and Ferguson, and I've said in my view, Alex Ferguson was the best manager that there has been, and Pep was the best coach, because I think Pep is an infinitely better coach and spends far more of his time coaching and tactics, and Ferguson spent far more of his time running everything, running the club. He wasn't like as often on, he often had Kidd and McLaren and people doing a lot of the coaching and training and even some of the tactical work. So I think they're very, very different managers and probably different eras as well. Like Ferguson.
I think Ferguson, Rich, I think he wasn't too far removed to a modern day director of football. I mean, in terms of position.
Yeah, he was an old school manager. He was in charge of everything.
Exactly.
He spent his time across everything. And, whereas Pep, I think, is a coach. I think Pep wants to coach. I think he wants to think of tactics. You might say overthink tactics. So I think we've got a different setup to United. And, I think United are probably heading more towards the sort of model we've got now because they realise that, when Ferguson joined, clubs were turning over 20 million. It was, mainly about the, the league, the FA Cup. European football wasn't huge. The global thing about football wasn't there. So it was a different game. Now it's just, now they're, there'll be $1 billion turnover businesses, but £1 billion turnover businesses soon. And they need a lot of people. And, you'll never have people having that power again, I don't think.
Okay, then. So at least see them. Because Alan put earlier on that possibly a 1 year rolling or whatever it is not long enough. Can you see people's concerns on that? I don't personally.
I don't.
Because for me, I know that's
a long time as well. It's a long time, 2 years as well. I think we've got the remainder of this season to play. Then that's next season and the season after that. That's a lot of football to be played in that time.
And you'll never get more. You'll never get more. Pep has always said that he likes a 1 year rolling forecast, 1 year rolling, contract. And so Pep always wants to feel that if his motivation or his hunger goes, he can leave.
Which is the right attitude to have, I think, as well.
Yeah. And, he's set for life in that he could walk into any job in football. He's got more money than, most people can dream of. He's sealed his reputation. He probably does want to win the Champions League at City because I think he will, whatever he says, whatever anyone else says, and, however much the fans care, I think he is not going to leave City without winning the Champions League. I think that's there. So
I think he's such a competitor, and to be as good a player as he was and as good a manager he was, there is no way that I think he will be able to look himself in the mirror and honestly say it doesn't bother him that he hasn't won that at City, no matter what he says in the presser. I mean, to be that successful and have that mentality and be that much of a winner, to then not win that, it will bug him.
And there's stuff he wants. Like, I'm sure he wants to, get Foden, playing, at that Ballon d'Or level. I'm sure he wants to see what he can do with Haaland for a year or two. So I'm sure there's, apart from the Champions League, there's a whole lot of individual things. I'm sure he wants to be only the fourth manager ever to do a three-peat, So there's a lot of things that he will want to do in football, and then every year he's getting closer and closer to various records. So he probably does think about that. It's quite obvious that, they talk about, players and managers, I don't know how many goals I've got, or I don't, like Haaland tried to pretend to say that in some interview. He didn't know what records he's got, but quite obviously Haaland knows exactly what he's got.
Of course he does.
And then you hear the stories coming out in this centenary season where in public Pep's saying, don't care. And in private, he knows all 29 records that City could potentially break and telling the players about it and wanting to do it. So, we just got to, as long as he's enjoying it, why would you move?
And then when he does go, it's a simple fix. We get Nagelsmann or we get Hansi Flick. Sorted. There we go. And then there's the next 5 years sorted after that.
Or we go and take the Premier League winning manager from Arsenal.
Jerry's still out for me on that one.
Can we not talk about the next manager when we're talking about the current one who's extended, please? Jesus.
It's only because of a comment I saw earlier on saying...
Ignore Alan. He's Mr. Bloody Negative. Ignore Alan. Rich will tell you all about Alan. We're 5-0 up and Alan's panicking. We're
Xander's
shit.
got a good point though, in that even if Pep's here for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we should be thinking years ahead who's going to come in and replace him, and making sure we've got that, we've got that lined up. Because you look at some clubs when they lose a manager, who's been there for a long time,
Arsenal, exactly, yeah.
Ferguson at United. They, even
always
to a degree, Poch and Spurs, which was a bit.
I was about to say that, yeah.
That could happen with Klopp at Liverpool when managers change.
Yeah.
Clubs can fall apart for years and years and years. And I think City are determined that they'll be able to change a long-term manager into another one.
Can we just rewind? Did you just say Poch and Spurs?
No, I agree with that.
Spurs were much better before they fired him.
Spurs have been falling apart for years, mate.
But Spurs were safe top four. They were plugging away, and they had something about them. Now it's like last 3 seasons they've been a bit. Where do they land?
No, I don't think they were safe top.
Because you've got two. I remember us chatting about this on the channel, last year, like 3 or 4 of us, and that kind of, talking about the 2 models of clubs. You got the Chelsea, who basically will turn over a manager every 2 years, and they do get success by constantly changing and pressure and everything else. And then you've got the way United under Ferguson, or City with Pep, or Liverpool with Klopp, they have a really long-term manager. And that's when, if you're used to changing managers all the time and you've got a structure built not around the manager, and you can still get success. But clubs with very, very long-term managers who want stability, it can be a real problem. So, the most important part of Pep extending is it gives us more time, and to prepare for whenever he does go.
Sorry, I've just seen something that's the most idiotic plus hypocrisy thing I've ever seen. Sorry, I'll tell you after the show, Rich. You'll laugh. Anyway, to me, I get people's worry, and I get what you're saying. City are that clever as a club. Of course, they'll think about who's next. They will do. But do I think 2 years down the line? No. I would probably think if Pep said to them next year, because what I think Pep would do is give them a 12-month warning. I think Pep would say, "This is it. This is my last trial."
I don't know. I think you can only plan so much. I mean, let's say fast forward to next year, and it's Christmas time, and we're 4 points off the lead, and then we just capitulate in the second half of the season. Do you think he's carrying on that extra additional year at that point? If we finish 7th and we've fallen apart,
depends why we've fallen apart. I guess. I mean,
yeah,
I think it depends.
If you fall apart because 10 people get injured,
then obviously. But I think
it's because he's losing the
dressing room, and it's all a little bit. I think that break clause is much a self-preservation thing on his part as it is protection for the club as well. I think it gives him an opportunity that if it does start, because things like he said before as well many times, players can get sick of hearing the same manager say the same thing over and over and over again, and it will be De Bruyne's 8th year with him. All these statures of players at the club that we've got, you never know, and you need get a couple injuries, a couple signings don't slot in how you want them to, and it upsets the dressing room. And at that point, he probably would be like, okay, I've done my time here. Let's leave whilst we've got a good memory and call the last season what it was and get out of there. I think he's done it to protect himself as much as anything. Personally, anyway, I might be wrong with that, but
I think so.
I get that. I just think Pep, if you go back every time Pep extends, whether it's Bayern Munich or Barcelona, he never signs long-term deals. Never has done.
He didn't extend at Bayern.
There's never long-term deals. There's always 1-2 years extensions. That's it. The rolling contracts. So I don't think
he extended once or something at Barca.
He did 1 year extra.
I don't think it's to preserve him. I think Pep and the club have an understanding, but I think Pep earned a lot. I think part of the reason why Pep stays, go back to his first year, like he said, I came in, I was fourth. I just scraped in, or third or whatever it was, just scraped in.
Just scraped third, yeah.
And most boards would have said, see you later at that point. And they didn't. They went, you know what? Don't worry about it. We'll back you. We'll look after you. We're quite happy. We know we've got an aging squad. We had
That was
Sanya,
a proper banter. That was
Zeba.
a proper banter squad though at that point, wasn't it? I mean, fucking
No,
hell.
but
When we
I
had...
get what you're saying, but they still spent 50 odd million on John Stones in the summer that year. It bought Ilkay Gundogan. It'd been allowed. Not many managers would be allowed to buy a goalkeeper and then go and buy another goalkeeper 12 months later.
Unless you play for Chelsea.
And you ditch your number one goalie out. You can't. I mean, this would never happen at Chelsea. Imagine it. Your number one keeper's gone.
No, they did it. It happened with Kepa. It happened with Kepa. They spent 72 million quid on Kepa. He played shit. They went, sod him, we'll get Mendy in for 35 million quid. Mendy's now shit, and they've shafted him to the bench.
Yeah, but what I mean is they didn't get rid of a very popular number one before.
But then Bravo
he was trusted to do that.
But he was on a different end of his career as well, Bravo.
No, but they spent 50 odd million on Stones, brought in Ilkay Gundogan, had spent a lot of money, finished third, squeaked in third, may I add.
Yeah.
Turned round and admittedly people, because let's be honest, there was a lot of people questioning whether Pep Ball would work in the Premier League. They were all saying it isn't going to work. It won't work.
We've all seen the clips of the fans outside the stadium going, "Play direct."
Yeah, there was an old guy wanted, Simeone in because we were. Yeah. And then
that's
look,
what I'm talking about.
And I think with Pep, that's always stuck with him with the board. That's always been something where he's gone, you know what? The board have absolutely backed me here. They trusted me to get rid of a very popular number one goalie. They trusted me to create something, and they realised it was a building job. And I think that's something that's never left him mentally. Because he still talks about it to this day. If you remember, he still says to him, not many managers. Imagine if he'd have done that at Chelsea. He'd have been out of 7 months down the road. He wouldn't have got 12 months. And Chelsea wanted him. United wanted him. All these other teams wanted him. But he came
I think it's because he saw the most potential in a project at City as well. I think that they would have been very much like, bring who you want, let them get embedded into the board and into the infrastructure of the club and go from there. I think everywhere else was a little bit more rigid. Chelsea, to be fair, Chelsea actually, when he came in, probably would have suited his profile a little bit more in terms of 2 to 3 years as a manager and then move on. But yeah, I think he's had a good time. I think he's enjoying it. I think if he wasn't enjoying living in Manchester and living in England, I don't think he would have extended as well. I think that's a factor.
He talks about Rick how he doesn't get harassed like he does in Spain, don't he?
No.
Yeah, you got to remember. I mean, I think the reality is in Spain that his profile and everything else in Barcelona in terms of love and adoration and everything else goes back far longer and deeper and is far more political and as a player than it would be in Manchester, for example. Yeah. And so and I think the different personalities of the media. The other thing is that in Spain you have media that is just Barcelona media and media that is just Madrid media. So if you play for them, you've got media that is only interested in you and you're the only story. Whereas in Britain, even in Manchester, the Manchester Evening News is not influential on everything in the same way as some of their presses in the Catalan, and they've still got United and City to worry about and loads of other things. So it's just not the same. He can get a bit more anonymity and probably a bit less hated because the hatred the Madrid fans had for him. I don't think it's you don't really see United fans really hating him.
I think that's a Manchester thing.
Madrid fans hated him.
I think that's the Manchester thing as well, Rich. I mean, you hear Jesus when he's moved even to Arsenal, and he said in interviews like, "I love the Man City fans." He was like, "They were great." He said, "But it's different in London." He was like, "It's like it's constant, it's swamped." And I think it is a city cultural thing as well. As in Manchester, it's a bit more like, oh, you're right, like,
I think it's a northern.
It's a northern thing. Whereas, like I've got family who are big Leeds fans, and they live literally 10 minutes from Ellen Road, and they were saying Bielsa used to just go to the local bakery and pick up like a sausage roll and stuff, and it was a big part of the community, and everyone was just like, oh, you're right, Marcelo, and he was like, oh, how you doing? Like it's so much more low key.
Yeah, no, you watch Bielsa. He used to walk to work every day. Didn't have some driver.
He loved it.
And he'd had his carrier bag. I mean, most people who walk past Bielsa, if you weren't
fan,
you'd think you'd probably think he was a homeless man who'd been donated.
And that's what
can I just say, other supermarkets aren't available and bakeries, other supermarkets, bakeries are available to people.
He was a massive part of the community, and I think that's something that down south where I am, it just wouldn't be facilitated. It's so much more intense in that regard, and I think you go a bit further north and it's a little bit more chilled out. So I think that's a factor.
I'd say, a bit undignified to a northerner, if you get too fanboyish, it's a bit like You kind of say there is an extreme. I mean, people say it's true about the British, but I think there is a bit of an extreme kind of like, deliberately not being fanboy or getting too excited. It's a bit of that. It's like, how are you today? Not bad. In other countries, everyone says, I'm fantastic, I'm wonderful, da-da-da. But the most you'll get out of us is not bad.
All right. Yeah, I'm all right.
Can't grumble. It's been worse.
You're all right.
Yeah.
I've always said this, what Blue Art's saying. Being honest, I think Pep was in the club before he actually became manager. Yeah. I'm telling you now, Kevin De Bruyne was not signed by Pellegrini. Kevin De Bruyne was signed by Pep Guardiola.
Same with Raz. But going back even to when Pep was at I think it was at Barca when Cheeky first came to City. Ferran and Cheeky met up with Pep 3 or 4 times every year for dinner and talked about footballers with him. So they talked about players they were looking at. They got his opinion, and that goes back not just to when he was at Bayern, but apparently even before that. They chatted to Pep about ideas for the future of the club. Like the clubs in other countries. So clearly, whether he was coming to clearly they always wanted him to come to City, but they also wanted his advice on football matters above anyone else. But then Cheeky and Pep go back a very, very long time. Ferran and Pep, obviously,
I think this has been from ever since Abu Dhabi came into this football club. Like Rich said, and all of us have actually said, this has just been a marriage waiting to happen. And we sort of had a couple of... We had Pellegrini, who, listen, did a fantastic job, won the double, won 2 trophies, may I add, 3 trophies, won the League Cup twice and won a Premier League.
Took us to our first semis in Champions League as well.
But listen, we all know
they were stepping stones. He was a
stopgap. He was a stopgap to get to where we were going.
He was babysitting.
I think we all knew the minute Pellegrini went, I've got a year, but I'm not taking it up. We all knew where this was going. Because in that time, it had already been announced, obviously.
Correct.
About Pep.
It was February time, wasn't it? It all started coming out.
Yeah. Pep Guardiola had his little... It was just everything had been announced at Bayern. I'm not sure if was he in the middle of his sabbatical or had he done that?
I remember I was at school and it all started coming out and everyone was like, have you seen the news? And it was like,
you could tell. The one thing I think you'll see, the one thing I think you'll notice is, I just think I was listening to a Twitter stream the other day, and they were talking, it was a Barcelona fan, and they said they've never seen Pep as happy. This is Barcelona fans. They've never seen the guy as happy as he is. He seems so happy and content. Because I think he thinks, and you know what? I think it is. Majority of City fans, if he went a year and didn't win the league, there's not a meltdown afterwards. Right? What's going on here? How dare you not win a trophy? blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Martin, I don't think that happiness and that relaxedness is off the fans. He didn't get trouble with the fans in Barca. The fans were all behind him. I think the inherent trouble at a club like Barca is you have a voting model. You vote for your president and the people who run the club every few years. So constantly at Barcelona, you've got political intrigue between factions who, you saw it with Bartomeu and Laporta. You've got factions in there, and you cannot be unaligned to a faction, because if you're unaligned to a faction, you can't be manager or get anywhere. But if you're aligned to a faction, you're constantly dealing with the parts of the media, the parts of the club, the parts of the fan base who are aligned with someone else. So inherently at Barcelona, you are always dealing with conflict. And that could be, players supporting different people internally. It could be the fans. It could be different papers, one supporting the person you're aligned to, one supporting another. So you're permanently dealing with that. You're permanently getting involved in discussions. You're permanently trying to calm down one thing and help on the other. And I think that's exhausting. Whereas City are 100% aligned. You've got an owner who's got a chairman who's now been there for 13 years or 14 years or whatever. You've got a CEO who was aligned to Pep. You've got a director of football who was aligned to Pep. So you've got just one club. They're not fighting against each other. There's no politics. There's no nonsense. There's no unsettlement. And I think that's why Pep likes it there. And I'd say it's probably would be the same if he was at, some of the other clubs in this country, because we don't have fan ownership. So there's not the politics of votes and who wants to
I know what you're saying, Rich. What I mean is, though, if you go back to the season Liverpool won the league, there wasn't a big hoo-ha from the owner. There wasn't really.
Not the owners, but there was a bit.
It wasn't really from a lot of the fans, and there might have been from a few on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, honestly, people within the stadiums and no, there was no.
No, of course.
Oh my God, we've not won the league. No.
Yeah.
He never had crap with fans at Barca.
We don't do that, Alexander.
Yeah,
you're on Twitter too much, Jim. Telling you.
Yeah.
He didn't have much fan grief though at Bayern or at Barcelona.
Oh, he did at Bayern, Rich, on the way out.
Yeah, when he was going. Yeah, when he was going though, not when he was there.
Football, Rich. How you get bored of Pep football? I don't know.
Because once you're going, how many people do you know whose wife or girlfriend or husband or boyfriend leaves them, and then they turn around and say the exact opposite about them that they've done? I mean, that's nature.
Stop your analogies.
No, but once Pep was going to leave, half the Bayern fans were always going to turn against him, because ultimately he was turning down Bayern, the biggest, greatest football club in the world, to go to Little City. So,
I think another factor we haven't. I think another factor we haven't talked about inside of his kind of little infrastructure pyramid, totem pole, however best to describe it, that he's built around him, is he wants a player, he gets the player. It's as simple as that. He wants Jack Grealish, 100 million quid lease cost. He gets Jack Grealish. 150 million. No, that's stupid. I mean that, but genuinely,
say that, by the way, in the Athletic, that do in the Athletic thing, it does mention, believe it or not, that when they didn't get Kane, there was a little bit of, could that come against us a little bit?
Yeah, but I think if you look
which
at
is why they
managers,
went for Ireland.
I think you look at most managers, you think to not get one player during a 7-year tenure, that's good going. Like, he gets anyone he wants, he gets them. We're not really a selling club. If they don't want to be there anymore, he goes go. But other than that, they never go, we have to cash in on this player because of his age. We need to sell him now. Little bit like if you look at Wijnaldum at Liverpool, that was a big upset selling when they sold that. That upset Klopp's kind of system a little bit. I can't imagine Klopp necessarily would have wanted to lose Wijnaldum, but he probably wanted more money and therefore they needed to sell him and move him on. We don't have any of that at City. If he wants a player, he signs a new contract, he stays. If he doesn't want a player, Sterling, Jesus, Zinchenko, to make room for new blood, they get gone as well.
And he doesn't know when he doesn't get a player. Like you just said there. Correct. I mean, there's Fred. I mean, the only one, the one I thought, I'm just going to bring Beto in a minute. The one thing I thought he might have got a little bit, said something, was Sanchez. But he never even mentioned Sanchez, it was just all, no, I'm happy. I trust the board.
I think he's I think he's slightly involved in that. I think when we look at price tags and we see Maguire for 80 million and all that kind of, I reckon he'll be at a point of going, I want him, but don't go stupid. Whereas I think the Kane might have been the exception of where he would have gone, I want this guy.
I think there's an element of with it that he City go reasonably in for everyone he wants, and I think he accepts that if something gets stupid, like he accepted that when Cucurella was going up to 65 million or whatever, that wasn't in his mind something that should be pursued. So I think as long as we go in reasonably, for everyone that he really pushes, I think he's okay on that, and I think he enjoys the fact that we've invested as we have in the academy, etc. Vater,
hey, fellas,
he's joined us.
Doing, mate?
He's joined us.
I'm good, man. Sorry for my
evening, mate. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you happy on the news?
USA.
This is not fully signed, sealed, and delivered yet. This is not like ink dried on the contract. It's there, but it's not. I haven't actually. We're 42 minutes in. I've actually talked like he signed the contract and it's done in as well. No, we're not fully there yet, but it is. It is going to.
It's going to happen. Yeah. Something like that doesn't leak unless it's going to happen. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. I'm trying to stay calm because I've been thinking about this for such a long time. I said, like, why wouldn't he sign an extension? What could be a reason for him not to sign an extension? What could be sweeter? What could be better? And all that kind of rationale, all that kind of thinking just led to things outside of football. It led to maybe life after football. It led to family. But if it was, I'm making football decisions, I'm thinking about my career as a manager, I'm thinking about the projects that I can be involved in, it all led back to City. And I was like, he's got to sign it. He's got to sign it. So I'm so...
Vader, I'm glad you're on. I've got two questions. I wanted to ask you two questions, okay?
Yes.
So the first question, how good is Pep as a manager? Out of 10, and brief description.
Out of 10, he's a 10. He's the standard.
Okay. So my follow-up question to that is, do USA win the World Cup with Pep Guardiola as their manager?
Well, considering he's not a USA fan,
this current team.
Yeah, but it's
Northern
Hemisphere and American Hemisphere.
I hear you.
Okay,
Canada. I think he could do it with Canada. He could do it with Canada.
You think?
Oh, get off. No, we wouldn't.
I think if you gave him a World Cup cycle, he could do it with Canada.
Sorry. Hang on a minute. I've just noticed something. Vader, come close to the screen a minute. Rich, come close. What the hell?
Yeah, we're about to start talking about what went wrong against Seattle.
What's going on?
Major League Baseball.
Is this a uniform that I've missed out on it?
Yeah, we should call it.
Where are yours? Come on, guys.
Yeah, the Blue Jay way.
Pardon
there
way?
You go.
What way? The Mancunian way.
The Blue Jay way.
The Blue Jay.
I thought you said something else then, Rich, and I thought it was getting a little bit.
Well, that's what I thought it had been. Then I realised, no, you did tell me it's the Mancunian way.
I thought we were getting back on my Bellingham chats that we were having a couple of weeks ago.
No, but to go back, Pep, he's the standard. He's the absolute guy. We are lucky. We've got such a great pocket of football and an experience as a fan to be enjoying it with a manager like his, and not taking anything from our managers of the past, but everybody wants Pep. Every club, I don't care who you are. You could be the Reds. Pick the Red. They all want Pep. He's the one. His coaching tree speaks for itself. Especially this year, you see what Arteta is doing. They want him because of what he means. And again, this kind of gets lost. And Pep gets slammed for this, for wherever he goes, the owners, they get him what he wants, or he's able to get the players that he desires. That happens because you you don't trust any other manager like you do Pep, right? You can confidently give him the keys and say, make it work, make it happen. He's not going to waste what you're spending on. He's not going to make poor decisions with how he's going to be approaching the growth or development of a club. So he's earned it. He deserves it. And whoever wants to argue that there's a better manager out there, you're talking out of your butt.
See, that's to me. There wasn't another one. There's nobody else we could have had. There's nobody else I would have wanted. To me, this is the perfect scenario.
So, Martin,
I get what I want. No, I get what I want. No, Pep stays, and we go another 2 years and don't win the UCL. So I'm quite happy bunny here.
Right, I've got to go. I've got to go in a minute, Martin. So I want to leave you with a question. Okay.
Oh,
So Pep signed Pep signed I've got my Man City quiz book. I'll go get it. Right.
Manchester City.
Yeah, exactly. Not whatever that is they're wearing. When you look at Pep 2-year contract extension, right? When his contract ends, let's say he does 2 years, right? Would you take Klopp as his replacement?
Whoa,
No.
what's the hesitation going on? What's happening here?
I'm letting you two answer before. I don't answer. I got told not to answer stupid questions, so I'm not going on that road.
Clearly
You
not.
wouldn't
Bloody Klopp.
No, don't like him.
You wouldn't take him?
No.
Just to purely just piss off all the Liverpool fans.
The only guy I would probably touch is probably Enrique.
Flick and Nagelsmann.
Oh,
So
It's got to be Flick or Nagelsmann. It's got to be one of them.
yeah,
It's got to be
Flick
one
on
of them.
Nagelsmann.
Got
so
to be.
are we done? Do we have the dinosaur mentality when we think of not wanting a manager that's managed at a rival? Is that
100%.
old school? Is that
No.
old
No,
school,
no,
or
no.
is it still, it's still today,
it
right?
muddies the water otherwise. You look at Ancelotti when he went to Everton. Not Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez when he went to Everton.
No. We've built up
Big question.
the whole of City's setup from the under sevens to the first team has been built around
Still
playing a
holistic
certain way.
approach.
So it's based around playing a certain way. So we have to have, and it is that, Cruyff thing. It's built on that whole Cruyff thing that Pep took. And so we have to bring in a manager who comes from that tradition and who comes with that background. So therefore, it's going to be someone who fits. And Klopp is 100% different manager to Pep.
I can get the Arteta. I'll get on board with Arteta. Don't ever mention Eddie Howe in the same breath as Manchester City.
Eddie Howe for England, mate. Eddie Howe for England. Get him the job. 100%. Arteta, I think the jury's still out on Arteta.
I'm going to defend.
Oh, here he goes.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it.
I think Eddie Howe's done a great job.
I'm just going to give Martin a bit of schooling here, but about
go on, school me.
Newcastle,
school me without 250 million quid in his back pocket.
Newcastle were bottom of the league.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
went and got Howe and signed players like Chris Wood. Martin ridiculed them all. And has there been a better team in 2022 in the Premier League than Newcastle? Only just. City only just.
Okay, Mitch.
And who have they signed?
Over the last 12 months.
And who have they signed?
He's done a phenomenal job.
I'll take some notes.
And they've signed Bruno Guimaraes for 40 million. What a buy. They've signed Dan Burn. I mean, what a buy that was at 15 million quid, whatever it was.
Callum
Wilson at 30 million. What
Chris
a buy.
Wood, 25 million.
Yeah,
Relegated
a rival.
15, and he relegated Burnley.
Relegated a relegation rival, and also does a job off the bench. I mean, I think he has done such a good job. They have bought so smart, even like Matt Target, like little signing Nick Pope for 15 million quid. What a signing that is!
Chelsea has spent more money and dropped 3 places.
Thank you.
The Newcastle have going 17 places higher.
I'm with you, Rich.
I'll tell you what, Rich.
We'll see what happens in long term, but I don't think we can ridicule
how over Potter?
Are
we saying how over Potter?
Let's settle this down a minute. Right? I heard all this about David Moyes. Last year, and Rich, you were on the phone calls. David Moyes is the greatest manager there's ever been. Greatest
style
ever
of football.
British
Different
manager.
style of
It's
football.
not-
No,
what
no,
has-
different
no,
football.
What has
no.
David
It's what I
Moyes
got
got to do with Eddie Howe?
And what's
They're
happened
like-
a year later?
No, because they're like a mini Liverpool. They remind me of Liverpool from about 6 years ago. Did that Newcastle team? How they press, how like Miggy Almiron. What has he done to him? He's turned him into a right little player. I mean, genuinely, seriously, how they play football is the right way of playing football. Whereas you look at David Moyes, yeah, that was results based football. How Eddie Howe plays football.
Isaac Brunin, Sven Botman, exactly. We can just roll out a list here,
All
you
right,
know.
sorry,
Like they've bought nobody here, you know what I mean?
Isak's not played. He's played 2 games and got injured, right?
Play a
Bruno
game.
Bruno was 35 million quid from League R, right? And Botman was 40 million quid from
And
League
how
R.
much was a
These are
Kenda?
great buys.
How much is a Kanja?
Martin, you're sounding a bit like a Scouse fan talking about City.
No.
here, so-
Yeah,
What
he
I'm
is.
saying is,
He
no,
is.
stop. What I'm saying is,
That
Steve,
Pot's calling that kettle
1 minute.
black, Martin, there.
Howe is doing an amazing job at the moment.
Howe is doing far better than Mark Hughes did for us in the equivalent position.
Correct.
1 minute.
Right.
Far better.
I'm not allowed to speak now.
Ooh.
Let me explain. Eddie Howe, he's giggling. He's been back one frigging show and he comes in. Right, listen. Eddie Howe has had, not yet, has had any pressure at Newcastle. He's on a free ride at the minute. He's done
Other
very,
than almost
very
getting
well.
relegated
1
last year.
minute, Xander, 1 minute. Because last week you were telling me Tottenham were going to be this amazing team. They're a bag of shit.
They are. Watch it.
And I told
Watch
you
it.
Conte was getting
Watch and wait.
sacked.
Mm.
But here's the other thing.
No,
right?
no, I don't know. Don't do that one.
Eddie Howe, when he gets a bad run going, then you'll see what. Then you can judge. Don't judge a manager when he's on an amazing run and he's not had a blip. He's not had a blip yet. When he has that blip, then you'll judge him. When
So
he had
does
a blip
that mean?
at Bournemouth,
So question
when
for
he
you,
had a
Martin.
blip at
Serious
Bournemouth,
question.
bye-bye.
Does that mean Usain Bolt's not a good runner because he never had a blip? He always did well. I mean, you can't say a manager's not good because they've only been good when they're a manager. Let's say Usain Bolt's rubbish because he's never had a blip.
Rich, Steve Bruce had a bloody good time at some clubs. Doesn't make him an amazing manager.
No, Steve Bruce was unfairly treated because he was
What
on
has
a
Eddie Howe done apart
was-
from having a decent run and spending 300 million or whatever it is?
Eddie
Tell me
Howe
what he's
has
done apart from
taken
get
a
clubs
team
relegated.
from
Tell me what he's
Stone.
done apart from get clubs relegated.
He's taken a team
Guardiola,
from
Pellegrini never
Stone.
did.
He took a team who had never been anywhere near.
They were a
top
championship
five,
side. They were a
had about-
championship side.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
Bournemouth. He took Bournemouth from
100%.
being an absolute non-entity to being
Exactly.
a Premier League club for some time.
Bournemouth were
then
nothing
took
before he came in.
Newcastle,
Yep,
who was
and then
stone
they got
cold
taken
last,
over, spent a
for
shitload of
going
money and
down.
got relegated.
and he's made them into Champions League
Try again.
contenders. It's
You're gonna
relegation.
come at me with facts.
The fact is, Newcastle was stone cold bottom a year
Correct.
ago,
I
and they are
agree with
now
you.
in a Champions League place.
Look what he's
Are
done to
you
Joe-
two
look
Eddie
what he's done
Howe's
to
bloody
Joe-
brother and sister? What's going on over there?
Look
Right,
what
right,
he's
right,
done to Joe
right.
Linton.
Pep,
I'm thinking
in
the thumbnail rated to
in
Eddie Howe.
Pep's first season, in Pep's first season, he spent as much as Eddie Howe did and took us down places. Eddie Howe has taken that team from 20th, stone cold last, points clear of bottom, to what are they, third at the moment in the Premier League? And if you can't see that is a bloody fantastic point. As for not being under pressure, what job was there with bloody more pressure on? He's under the pressure of relegation.
also,
He's under
How
the pressure of
needs to
spending
sign
money,
an extension
and he
like
knows
that.
they can afford to sign someone else in his place any second. So he's under more pressure than any manager in the Premier League.
And he
Who
brought back a
Who
Kieran
is?
Trip. He
Apart
brought back a
from
Kieran
David Potter,
Yeah. He brought
Howe's
back
under extreme pressure. He's the
Mate,
most
he brought-
replaceable manager in the Premier League.
he
I
brought
say
back
Howe
an
over Potter. Howe
he brought back
over
an
Potter.
exiled Kieran Trippier who was out in Atletico Madrid. No one thought we'd ever see his face again. Spurs sold him. He's on the bench for Atletico Madrid, right?
Right,
He's got
how many games in Europe has Eddie Howe managed?
Hold on. He's got Dan Burn at left back, right?
It's
who's
quite
a
hard to
6'5"
manage. Yeah, in
centre
Europe when
half,
you're 20th.
right? Then he's got Botman and Shah, who Shah 12 months ago, if you asked any Newcastle fan about Shah, they were like, he should be nowhere near our starting team. They were playing Jermaine Lascelles over him, right?
I'm
He's
not denying that.
But my point is, he's turned Joel Linton, who couldn't hit a barn door, into a prolific box-to-box midfielder, right? Miggy
He does
Almiron,
get
who
ready
scored,
for that. Yeah, he does get
he turned
ready
Miggy
for
Almiron, who had 2 goals in 52 appearances, into Player of the Month winner last month, 7 in 7 or whatever it was. It's like he's got, and he's done this pretty much season without St. Maximin. Isak's been injured, and he's got Callum Wilson up front. I think he's done a great job for the squad he's got. I think he's doing, and for the football he's playing.
Okay, then. Right. Okay, this is my point. I've just said Eddie Howe's done an amazing job at the moment. When we are talking, comparing him as a City manager, that is madness. For me.
But we're talking about 2 years' time, and clearly
no, Rich, because I'll tell you something. I'll give you an example here. Brendan Rodgers was doing wonders with very little money at Leicester. Very little money. Right? I went, get him in at City. He's doing an amazing job after Pep. And now he's got absolute young, see you later off the cliff. We don't know where Howe will be in 12 months when he has.
I think if Potter gets a Chelsea job,
we don't know that for any manager. I mean,
I think if
any
Howe,
manager you take,
other than spending money at Newcastle, has failed everywhere else. That's his fact.
What?
No, I don't think you asked 10,000 Bournemouth fans. If you ask 10,000 Bournemouth fans, you'll probably find 1 or 2 who'll say Howe was a failure.
So you're comparing Bournemouth to
9. No, I'm saying
Jesus.
you're calling the manager a failure, and I think that's just
no,
nonsense.
Rich. What I'm saying is you are now you are comparing a manager who was never even won a raffle to now suddenly become the next City manager in 2 years.
We're not. We're saying he is potentially in 2.5 years' time, in 2025, depending on what happens, he may be in the conversation.
Rich, I didn't want to be at Burnley.
If you gave me a choice today between Klopp and Howe, I think Howe is more likely to keep us winning.
Oh God,
Klopp would change
it.
I think
That's
also, Martin, something. There's 2 things in this. One, if Potter can become Chelsea manager, there's no reason Howe can't become City manager.
Hang on a minute. All right, on that, Potter managed in Europe.
No, he
managed Molder, not Molder. Come on,
a small.
Come on, that right. So
that's more European pedigree. The only European pedigree Eddie Howe has is getting on
Martin, if you use that argument, then if Eddie Howe managed Merthyr Tydfil, he's got European pedigree. European pedigree is managing in the Champions League, which we know Potter and Howe don't have. European pedigree isn't managing, FC Bastia.
And also when you say he's not won anything, right? Let's not forget Pep Guardiola was Barcelona B manager.
We're talking about bleeding Eddie Howe here.
But let's not forget that Pep was Barcelona B manager when he got the job at Barcelona first team as well. It was one of those things where sometimes you've got to take a punt on these managers that look like they've got an identity in the way they're playing.
Take a punt on companies top of the Championship.
I think Arteta's the most likely to.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, why is Company not in the conversation then?
Because
I don't want a Frank Lampard.
He needs a little more time. He needs a little more time.
I don't want a Frank Lampard situation where he comes in.
Pep's coaching tree, Arteta, Company. I mean, I think those are all going to be very good managers when time comes. I think it's a fair combo. Howe, Potter, you bringing up the spending, yeah, that's fair. But with regards to the pressure that he had to deal with to make sure that they didn't get relegated, and again, the form that they're in, nobody, even with the spending that they did, would have said that they would have been performing this well.
No.
And I'd love to see someone like Company come onto our staff. I think if you're taking a manager like Company and you're taking a punt, then he's got to come in as assistant for a year or 2 for Pep. But I'd have said at the moment, I would have said Enrique and Arteta would be the favourites.
Arteta will know the structure of the club, Rich. That's the big thing as well.
And he plays the football, and so
he knows Varane, he knows Cheeky. He's been amongst it. So I think but then it's the kind of thing of, would he want to leave Arsenal for something like that? If he's got his own little project, he might like being in his own little bubble and outside of Pep's shadow a little bit. And so anyway, I've got to shoot, lads, because I've got to get off work in the morning.
This sort of part I'm going to say on the Eddie Howe stuff. Eddie Howe has done a marvellous job at Newcastle. Fabulous job at Newcastle. But do I see him being in Newcastle in 3 years? No. To me, and I've
So
always
you
said
think
this,
he's going to be at City?
Eddie Howe is the Manchester City Mark Hughes.
Oh,
He's
that's
the place
brutal. That is
No,
brutal.
he's already done more. He's already done. Mark Hughes took a team that was 8th and made them 9th. Howe's taken a team that's 20th and made them 3rd. Yeah.
You think when the Saudi Arabians, billionaires, come in and went, let's take over Newcastle, do you all think they all sat there and went Eddie Howe for 10 years?
I think if you sat down with them and asked them when they were 20th, where would you be happy being by the end of 2022?
I'll give
Pellegrini one of the more trophies than Mancunian. He went for Pep.
I'll give you credit on that, mine. I don't think anybody would have sat down and gone, in 10 years, Mark Hughes will be our legacy manager and he'll be our Pep figure. But I think they looked at it and I think they saw, if someone can get us playing the right way and be smart and savvy in the transfer market and get the fans on side and be playing attractive football, but then I think that would have been caveated with, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and we'll give him time to do something. I reckon they would have done him and they would have gone, you've got 3 years to get us in the Champions League. If you don't get us in the Champions League in 3 years, we're going to go for a Enrique. We're going to go for a Tuchel. We're going to go for somebody who can come in, pedigree European manager, and take it from there. But I think they would have brought him in with the caveat of, you've got a bit of time. If you don't, and I think because remember, he didn't have a job when they signed him, so I think he would have been like, brilliant, bring me in, just roll the dice on me.
For about 2.5 years.
So I think he would have been happy for them just to roll the dice on Eddie Howe, and if it works, great for him. If it doesn't, he's not lost anything. And I think at the minute, both of them are winning because his stock's high, and they're playing great football, and they are amongst it as much as anybody for the Champions League.
Anyway, I thought you were going, but here's my point. Thank you, Xander.
Right,
he comes
thank you, guys.
He drops it. Cheers, mate.
See you guys.
Can I just say, this is the only thing I'm ever going to say on this, on Eddie Howe. If Eddie Howe could be his own worst enemy here, because with them owners, if he finishes outside the top 6, can it then be classed as a failure? You've got to look at it on the other side of the coin. You can't say, well, it wasn't never really meant to get there.
No, I think
going, well, this, that, and the other, what a great manager. If he finishes 8th or 9th, are you then could be for the sack?
I think Eddie Howe.
You got to look at it on both sides of the coins there, Rich.
This season, I think Eddie Howe.
Make an point on that one. He just like check and make. Thank you very much.
No, absolute nonsense. I think Eddie Howe. They'd have sat down this season, and I think Newcastle would have probably had as their aim a top 6, 7 finish, and probably a cup, an outside chance at winning one of the cups. And I think that would be their aim, to establish themselves there. Next season would have been the season they want to get into the top 4, because I don't think anyone would come from 20th and think you can go from there and get top 4 the next season. So I think Howe, if they came 12th this year, I think he'd get fired. If they come top 7, I think he's on track. 8th or 9th, don't know. That's probably marginal. Top 4, I think he's ahead of schedule and he's going to get a lot more money to spend. So we'll see. And we're talking about Pep. He's signed till 2025. So we're not even talking about a question of having a manager in the next year or two. We're talking about people who may be the right person in 2.5 years' time. Now, anything can happen in that time. Arteta could have a mare after Christmas and Arsenal could come 10th this year and Arteta's gone. Spain could go out in the group stage and so the managers who we think are at the top could be blown away, and there could be managers we haven't, Potter could be the greatest thing in football in 3 years if, things go right at Chelsea. So you just have to look at who's doing a good job today, and when we get a new manager, when Pep tells us he's going in January 25 or whenever it is, we'll look around, we'll see who are the good managers then, and we'll make our call. But it won't be a Klopp type. It'll be someone who plays in that Cruyff legacy.
Okay. Well, anyway, this was not a stream about Eddie Howe. Turned into a stream about Eddie Howe.
It was it?
Because Rich decided he wants to become his agent.
No, I think Arteta and Enrique are favourites, but I'm just... I just took issue with, bit of a, sneer at Eddie Howe when I think he's doing an amazing job.
Hey, no, Rich, he's doing a great job, but it's a massive jump to the Manchester City job. Massive jump. You're talking night and day. No offense. This is what I keep saying. Newcastle are on a journey at the minute. You have to remember, Manchester City are 10 years ahead on that journey.
Yeah. Hopefully 10 years ahead. I've a feeling we might not be 10 years ahead. That's the thing in football. What Pep goes and we fall down, we could be behind them in a season. That's the thing. And we can't take our level for granted because,
like Blue Out said, there must be 20 more managers more experienced than Eddie Howe. He's no European experience, has not won a Dicky Bird. His CV isn't close to what City need or are looking for.
Yeah,
and I am.
But to Rich's point,
that's what the Glazers thought when they went for Van Gaal. That's what the Glazers thought when they went for Mourinho. That's what the Glazers thought. We don't want to bring in a manager who's 65, who's got a very long CV and has a particular way of doing things. We want to bring someone in who can fit into the way the whole club's organised, can coach the first team and take us forward. So, there'll be lots of more experienced managers, but a lot of them would be absolute disasters at City.
Yeah, and I'm not only agreeing with Rich because he's wearing the Toronto.
Yes, you are.
No, not just because he's wearing the
Look,
Toronto.
why he's smiling up there. I'll get a text in a bit. Really wound you up, you little son tonight. You were well going.
But Rich is speaking some facts with regards to long-term projection, and let's see what happens in the next 2 years with regards to progression and development, and all the trials and tribulations that are going to happen at Newcastle. Howe may turn out to be a very good manager dealing with all of that commotion and all of those challenges over there, or he may crap the bed to your point. But 2 years extension, it's a good problem for us to have as City fans and not having to worry about Pep. So.
Yeah, and let's be quite honest. If Howe is still at Newcastle in 2.5 years' time, it's probably because they're competing for the league. They've got richer owners for us, and he'll be absolute hero. So why would he leave Newcastle for City? Same with, it's true with Arteta. If Arteta's still there in 2.5 years and competing for leagues and stuff, as you said, Vader, he may not want to go to.
The only thing I would I'm going to put a bow on this thing with Eddie Howe. The only thing I'll say in Eddie Howe is this thing of he has not spent money. He has. That is this really, don't fall into this because they're not. The money they've spent on defenders is not shy of what we've spent on defenders. And we're champions and have been competing in the Champions League. They're not in the they're not even in Europe. They're splashing out 40. They've spent more, 65 million quid on a striker who scored 5 goals all season in La Liga.
Fair.
In 38 appearances, 5 goals. With David Silva sat behind him. They spent 65 million on him. So when I hear, but he hasn't spent a lot, it falls down for me. It falls down.
No one's not said he hasn't spent a lot, but he spent well, and that's the reality. Is the spending? I don't think
65 million on a 5-goal in one season strike is a great deal for me. Sorry, I don't. Maybe others do. I don't.
But you got to see how he turns out. That's he's a young striker with a lot of talent who, again, will be judged. You want to judge Howe on a couple of years and saying you can't judge him now, and yet you turn around a second later and judge a striker over an even shorter period because he's only been there 3 months.
Anyway, right, let's get off Eddie Howe.
Manchester City about fewer goals than us, so
Manchester City is the manager. Pep Guardiola is the manager. He is going to sign this contract. I am over the moon. This is going to shut a lot of people up in football, especially them down the M62 and them over the road who, listen, to me, this doesn't send a statement out to Manchester City, this sends a statement out around football. That Pep Guardiola is here to stay, and he's willing to go again. He will have had assurances when he signed that contract. I'm telling you now, don't be surprised. Jude Bellingham, see you in 2023. And you know what? That's going to upset a few people. It'll upset a few City fans. Me and Leighton know one in particular. That's going to piss off.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen.
To your point, I think that is a huge statement. Also, I know we've said we're not spending in the January transfer window, but it does speak a lot to those managers and players that have City on their radar. Yeah. It says, I know Pep's going to remain there. If I have plans or ambitions to go there, that kind of seals the deal. So a lot of moving parts, but I'm happy for the news, man. I'm happy for the news. And it's done in such a calm, under the radar, understated manner. World Cup is happening. It's not a distraction for players to have to answer during the season. Excellent.
It was done the Pep way.
Excellently done.
Everything Pep does is quiet and under the radar.
I think
Pep doesn't make big things about things, does he? He doesn't go out and make a big old statement and look at me. We certainly won't be doing an open bus top parade if we won the league trophy. If we won the League Cup, we won't be sat doing an open top bus parade. We won the League Cup. What do you do?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That isn't. Yeah. We're just about everything about. Do you know what I love about him? When we do the open top bus parades, he's got a cigar in his hand. He's having a laugh with the fans. He's just so. I just love the guy. I love him, and I'm so happy he signed again.
Yeah. Same.
Anyway,
no, it's good. It's good news.
Any final thoughts on the king that is Pep Guardiola before we all have to shoot?
I think City will spend in January. I think he's been given a little present.
Say that till Thursday. Thursday. Nailing it.
Yeah, that's why he's in Abu Dhabi. He said, I'll sign this. But I want a little present with bells on it. Something about maybe 17 years old forever, with bells on it in January, please. And if you do, I'll sign.
You know what I mean? Gareth Bale scores one penalty and he can't shut him up. You know what I mean? He's been on giddy since yesterday. Gareth Bale.
Huge draw, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, you're not top of the group. Get back in your box. England are top of the group.
Yeah, as someone mentioned, the US's population is over 100 times that.
God, here we go. If I hear that one more time, Wales are this little minute thing compared to.
Well, they are.
You're saying Wales is punching above their weight class? By the way, all right then.
Head to the US for sure.
The players you had compared to the US players, come on, Rich. Don't give me that one. You had Ramsey, you had Gareth Bale, you had Wayne Hennessy, and you're comparing about a guy who's not played in 3 months.
I love it. Wayne Hennessy being talked about with Gareth Bale.
Oh, USA might be a massive club. Listen, go on to the New York Post today. Has anyone seen the New York Post today, the front headline?
No, what they end up saying?
Win for the States. They don't even know what a win and a draw is. Come off it, mate. Don't give me that one. Don't get giddy over a 1-1.
I think the draw is a win given Wales in the history of football, but
he's on about little Wales, like they've got nobody, they've got no players.
Do you know what? Listening to Martin, you can hear the United fans who taunted him as a kid. He's just being like, he's being like a United fan. England behaving like lads.
When do you guys play? When do you guys actually play? What day?
Monday in Australia.
Monday.
I think it's Sunday night. Tuesday night. Tuesday night or something. It's Wednesday morning here.
When do England play? Hang on, before we go.
Play Wales. Wales play Friday here against Iran, and then I think it's Tuesday in Doha, and Wednesday here they play England.
Yeah, Tuesday we play you. So on Sunday night we give the Americans a kick in. And then on Tuesday night, we give the Welsh kick in.
Yeah, and we'll just call you Raggy Horsey.
So,
You rag-like attitude.
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil a surprise or announcement. But are you working on anything? Are you going to be able to do anything time zone wise?
I'm on holiday, so
How long are you away
I
for?
don't know if I'm going to have.
How long are you away for?
I'll be back Thursday.
Oh. No,
There's
can't
gotta be
do the post-match.
No, there's got to be a post match. Something.
No, he won't do it. He's away. He won't do it.
Wi-Fi.
No,
there's gonna be no. There's Wi-Fi. There has to be either a
He's
pre-match.
too scared.
No, I need to hear it. I need to hear it. Come on, guys, make it happen. Crowd in the chat. Tell them they need to make this happen.
Carl won't do it on Friday. They'll all be too scared. This is what happens.
No. Okay. All right.
When Phil Foden runs the show.
Only Martin's got the chest.
Listen,
okay.
in all fairness,
I'll be too busy later with the new England door invading from over Offa's Dyke.
Hang on a minute. And you got Belgium tomorrow.
Mm. Yeah.
Who are you playing to? When do you play, Rita?
Tomorrow, Belgium.
Yeah, so I've been more worried about you, mate.
Yeah. I'm just
you're going to find out who Kevin De Bruyne is.
I know exactly who he is.
I heard
your cute story about
wasn't
Canadians
cute,
not knowing who
true.
KDB was.
Who's this Kevin De Bruyne here? You're about to find out.
It's gonna be. I just want. Davies isn't 100%, but I think he's gonna be a warrior, and we're gonna put on a show. There's gonna be a lot of us being underestimated. So,
hey, maybe you two can share a plane together back home.
Why would we share a plane?
Well, no, I meant your countries, Canada and Wales. You might share a plane back.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
I tell you, Martin, you would have made a really good United fan. You would have made.
He's in good form tonight. I can't lie. He's in very good form today.
Yeah.
6-2. 6-2. Jack Grealish scored. Says it all. Grealish got bagged.
Do you know what?
My boy bagged. Bellingham bagged.
I would be here longer. I would be here longer to battle it out, but I gotta run. My boys got.
He's going to let his true balance show soon. He's going to be going on about how many Champions Leagues have we won.
We won the World Cup in '66. Did you not know? Right, listen. Big thank you to everyone who's joined us. Go and give Veta Games TV a lot of love. It is great to have Rich back. I don't know why he's suddenly got a cap on. I don't know what's going on today, but anyway, support the whatever they're called over in Canada. There you go. We are back now on Thursday. On Thursday night, we have a cracker of a show. We are going to do a third of the review season. We're going to talk about Manchester City season so far, which will include all about were Manchester City correct to sell to Arsenal. We'll get into all that on Thursday, as well as will Manchester City go on a little bit of a shopping spree in the January sales. We will discuss it all on Thursday, and I might even put Newcastle as my surprise title winners, just to keep Rich nice and happy up there in the corner. Anyway, have a lovely evening. Pep Guardiola will commit to another 2 years. We've got Guardiola. We certainly have. Have a great time. See you on Thursday. Time to be confirmed. We will let you know on Twitter at Horsey City for the time. Rich is thinking, yeah, I have to confirm that.
I'm going to be looking for the announcement. I'm excited.
Yeah, great show. Thank you, everyone. And there's been so many of you in the chat. Please smash that like on the way out. Hit that subscribe and go and show Veta Games TV a lot of love as well. Take care, and we'll see you Thursday. Take care.
Bye.